Hey folks, it's Eddie G, DM Fumble, and this is Fumbling Around. Today we're going to do another unboxing, because when you fail, you have to try again. And today we shall. This time I want to focus on 3 epic minis that are part of the Shadow of the Dragon Queen set. These include Red Ruin on Red Dragonelle, Kisaldi on Red Dragon, and Lord Soth on Greater Death Dragon. For this review, I'll look at each mini individually, then as a group. Finally, I'll touch on which ones have the most use in non-Dragonlance games, so you'll definitely want to stick around for that. Let's start with the Red Ruin and Red Dragonelle mini, or should I call it a biggie? Maybe we can make that a thing. Alright, maybe not. Red Ruin is a new character to the Dragonlance saga. The character is kind of akin to the Red Baron from World War I. Both are supposed to be excellent aerial combatants, with Red Ruin riding a well-trained Dragonelle instead of a biplane. First, I like the use of Dragonelles in the Dragon Queen module, and at this point in the timeline of the War of the Lance, dragons are still supposed to be creatures of fairy tales. Using Dragonelles and Wyverns fills in that gap, not to mention they have a much lower CR than most dragons. Like most of these sets, each comes with a rider. As a mini by itself, I like the way Red Ruin is posed. It's holding a lance that definitely needs to be corrected. It's all wobbly here. But once that's the case, it looks like it's menacing and ready for a fight. Where I think the mini really shines is when it's actually on the Dragonelle. The rider mini is actually in 2 parts, with an upper torso that can be removed and placed on a saddle piece, which can then be placed onto the back of the creature in question, in this case, the wyvern. This little piece right here actually comes off, and we can slot our saddle and Red Ruin in there. Look at this pose. Red Ruin is half riding, half standing in their saddle, and looking like they are chomping at the bit to get into combat. So far, I seem to have 2 problems with these minis. Like many of the recent Wizkids Dragon minis and a few other creatures, these minis, the creatures, the mounts, are all upsized, meaning they're so large they need to be put on a huge or larger base, and then they add a ring at the bottom that shows you the actual size of it in true combat. Unfortunately, this puts this Dragonelle out of scale with other similar minis, like the recent Dragonelle from Fizban's Treasury. On the other hand, it does make the mini look nice on your shelf and will certainly scare your players. Okay, maybe that's not such a bad thing after all. The Red Dragonelle mini is amazing. I love the look of it, the wings spread out. It's got a downward slope to it, ready for fighting. It's got this great additional red armor scales on its top of its neck, all the way down the back. You can see the straps underneath attaching all that new armor to it. Next, let's look at Kisaldi on Red Dragon. Unlike Red Ruin, Kisaldi is actually an obscure character from a previous Dragonlance adventure. I really like that the writers went back to much of the older, sometimes forgotten lore to mine elements to revive in this adventure. Kisaldi is also known as the High Master of the Red Dragon Army, which is basically one step down from a Dragon High Lord, if you're familiar with the Dragonlance War of the Lance setting. This is a great mini, and definitely, again, shows the pose of someone who is ready for a fight. I love some of the detail in the armor, as well as the face. There's a reason why she's also known as Kisaldi Fire Eyes. And you'll have to look at the mini or read the module to find out that. Again, like I mentioned before, top part of her torso comes off. It attaches to this nice little saddle piece that we have. And we can put her on the back of the Red Dragon. Now, without the rider, the Red Dragon looks like a great, great mini. I love the wings flared up. I love the mouth open like it's ready to bite or breathe fire. And again, it's got additional pieces of armor on its sides and underneath, under its belly, to really kind of make it stand out. Oh, there's even a little bit here on its forehead to make it really stand out as a combatant in war. Again, little piece in the back here will pop off, and then that lets us put the saddle piece in. And then we've got a nice Consaldi riding there. Again, ready to unleash that spear, whatever it might be, on whoever her target might be. All right. I really, really like this one as well. Again, great pose, great color on the wings, great fierce look on the face. Definitely a nice mini to have. Hey folks, are you enjoying this content? If so, please consider hitting that like and subscribe. It feeds the YouTube algorithm and has really helped this channel grow in the last few weeks. I thank you for your efforts, and now, back to the show. Last up is Lord Soth on a Greater Death Dragon. The Death Dragon is a new undead dragon type based on some specific story elements from the Dragon Queen module. This is the greater version of the Death Dragon. There's also a lesser version that was part of the blind boxes, and of course, I didn't get one. Anyway, for this set, we get a two-piece version of Lord Soth, who can ride the Death Dragon or stand on his own. While the character can make many appearances in the module, the party can't really do anything significant to him in the adventure for a variety of in-game and out-of-game reasons. Even still, this version of Soth has his sword out to fight and his rod of purple flames at the ready. Here he is on his saddle. If we remove just this one little piece here, we can slot him in. Again, like the Red Dragon, we can see that the Greater Death Dragon has some additional armor bits on his neck. We also can see some armor on the sides of his legs. And we can also see these wonderful translucent purple flames, just like the one Soth has on his torch, flaring out from the creature. As a figure, the mini is beautiful, with the translucent flames giving off that sense of motion, soaring through the air. Due to its size, it might be more of a display piece and less easy to use at the game table. Also, I should note that the wings for my dragon, especially this one here on the left, is near impossible to fit in there. I'm definitely going to have to plan on using a hot air dryer to try to loosen up the material before I try to slide it in. I was afraid of actually breaking it for this video, and I wasn't going to have that happen. Again, considering the prices for all these minis, I would have preferred wings that fit without chewing up my fingers or making me reach for my Dremel. A last-ditch effort for sure. Well, the Death Dragon here is the worst culprit of this case, and the Dragonelle is actually the least offensive. All of these creatures seem to have a problem getting their wings attached smoothly and tightly. Of the three minis, overall my favorite for gameplay is going to be Red Ruin. I can see my players getting distracted by this adversary and maybe not paying enough attention to other enemies gathering around them. Second would be Consaldi, since again this is probably who they will get the most joy out of defeating. Because Lord Soth won't be a viable adversary for this adventure, you have to let them relish in the defeat of this leader of the Red Dragon army. Lastly, we have Lord Soth. He's one of my favorite characters of the setting, and I'm glad to see him in the module with a kind of important role to play. And while I'm glad I have this miniature, I'm a collector, aren't most gamers? This is an easy pass, considering his role in the module doesn't really require the Greater Death Dragon and the cost of the mini, which is around $120. Next up, can you use these minis in non-Dragonlance games? Absolutely. None of the minis have any marks that identify them as Dragon Army or Dragonlance setting. Consaldi definitely looks like a villain, and the Red Dragon marks her as someone with some serious power. Red Ruin, on the other hand, could just as easily be an ally or an enemy, and since Dragonelles are typically neutral in alignment, a red one doesn't necessarily indicate evil. Lord Soth, being the 5e poster boy for Death Knights, you can go ahead and look that up in the monster manual, and with him being so iconic to Dragonlance, it's a little less easy to slot him into other games. But if you have something with undead armies, a Death Knight riding a Death Dragon can be a nice change of pace from a typical Dracolich. So there you have it. The three big minis, or biggies, from the Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen module. Which one is your favorite and why? Leave a comment below. Have you played any parts of the module and actually used these creatures? Let me know how that's turned out as well. Cheers. Until next time.